Good evening. It's 6 o'clock on April 7th. We're going to go ahead and get started with our special meeting. So I'll call the meeting to order and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. We will start with entertaining a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Unless, Mr. Kramer, are there any changes to be made?
There are no changes.
Okay, great. So I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of adopting the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. With that, we will enter into the board work session for the preliminary 26-27 district budget. And so we will exit the special meeting to do so. Is that correct, Mr. Kramer? And then enter into the work session.
It's a work session, so we're kind of just with the specifics.
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, as a segue into tonight's work session, I need to share that in the 18 years that I've been doing this, this is the most unknown preliminary budget that I've dealt with, and I'd ask that you be maybe a little bit flexible with me, if you will. There are a number of unknowns that are still being worked out. I participated in a day-long work session with business managers, Wyoming Department of Education. Dickie Shaner was present. There still are a lot of questions being asked to the AG's office. And there are a lot of ways that we're trying to determine what the intent of the legislature was and how things plan to be worked through, I guess. So I just show that as a little segue that even the preliminary budget that's presented next month may still look quite a bit different than the final budget presented in July, just because of the manner in which the model was recalibrated. And we'll talk about several of those items.
Ms. Cates, I attended a board chair roundtable today. And what I can tell you is you are not alone. So I think we had 10 board chairs across the state on the roundtable today, and all of them have said their business managers are struggling to understand what it is we're working with and what our parameters are. So we're all just going to do our best to stay within the parameters that we do know and work with what we've got. So I do appreciate that, but wanted you to know you're not alone.
Perfect. Thank you. Up. Here we go. So several of these things we did talk through when we had our legislative work session with Senator Steinmetz and Representative Williams. So some of these things may look familiar to you. We presented items that we thought might be presented. The first being ADM. Okay, so what, I thought I was muted. Okay. Okay. The first item was ADM, that being average daily membership, and that being the manner in which we receive our funding from the legislature based upon our number of students. we're receiving funding based upon a 3-year average or actual. The change was made to make that a 2-year average or actual, whichever is greater. Our 2-year average is projected at 1,576 students. Our actual is projected at 1,570 students. Our prior year ADM was 1,581, and our 3-year average was 1,603. The reduction that we will see in funding based upon students as of right now is 27. And each student is worth between $15,000 and $18,000. The next big piece that we talked through is the instructional silo and the categorical special purpose allocations, as well as the block grant. So what the legislature did was set aside a portion of money for the instructional silo. That being money that could only be used for certain functions of employees and certain salary objects. Those employees included in the silo are elementary instruction, middle school and junior high instruction, secondary school instruction, gifted and talented, ELL or limited English proficient, vocational instruction at the high school level or CTE, instructional facilitators, and then a new one that came about last week was dual and concurrent enrollment facilitation. So when we look at the budget, that's going to be a little bit different than it has shown. Of those staff members listed above, and those are specific categories if you think back to the budget, those are specific categories and line items in the budget. The silo can then fund regular salaries, temporary salaries, FICA, and insurance.
Marcy, just to clarify, that insurance is only for those individuals covered under the silo, or is that for all staff members?
Those 4 items listed are exclusively for those employees funded in the silo. So for instance, and I should have clarified this, thank you. Yeah. Special education is not funded in the silo. That's totally standalone. Nurses are not funded in the silo. Librarians are not funded in the silo. Counselors are not funded in the silo.
So Marcy, can I ask a question about the dual and concurrent enrollment facilitation? So currently our counselors help with that, correct? So can they be partially funded through the silo or no?
That's a very good question. What the intent of that is that tuition overrun that we have for dual and concurrent, which this year is looking to be $260,000. Any funds that we don't receive through either BOCES or the additional allocation for dual enrollment can come out of this silo.
But I would say right now, that's an excellent question to kind of move down the chain. But our interpretation right now is counselors, being that they would be in an advisory role, not an instructional role, would not fall under that for that portion of time.
Yes,
that'd be different.
Yep.
Thank you.
This is the instructional piece.
Yep.
And please, this is for your information. If you have questions, please chime in and ask them. Very informal. One of the positives that came out of the legislative session was that we would receive reimbursement of special ed out of district placement on a quarterly basis. And this is very positive. However, for the budget year we're dealing with, this being FY27, this is going to make our budget look out of whack or top heavy, because we'll receive the reimbursement for FY26 out of district placement next year, as well as that quarterly reimbursement. So our revenues are going to look higher than normal. The next item is retirement. And retirement is one of those specific item allocations. We will receive 15.19% of our eligible payroll expenditures in retirement funding. The retirement contributions to the WAM retirement system increased from 18.62 to 18.87. That's a 0.25% increase. With that, Goshen County School District employees are currently contributing 4.76%. So tomorrow, one of the conversations with salary relations will be the fact that our unfunded portion is 3.68%. There's 1% that we'll talk through if employees will continue to contribute 4.76% or if it will go to the unfunded portion.
This is Kate's, and that is applicable to classified and certified staff.
This is all staff.
Okay, thank you.
All eligible payroll. So we don't receive this for food service. We don't receive this for any federally funded positions, but all general funds. Transportation, special ed, everybody.
For those inside and outside of the model?
Silo, yes.
Sorry, for even the model, I'm sorry, should have explained that question better. For those that are going to still be in their interim study where nurses and those type of things, even with that, they are still funded through the state in the same manner, even though they might not fall under the model.
Correct. Health insurance is going to be funded outside of the block grant. Year one will receive funding based upon actual employees. If you remember, there was a lot of conversation about ghost employees and districts receiving funding for employees not taking insurance. With that, we're funded based upon actual employees participating in insurance, and year one is allocated based upon the employer amount from the state health plan. Year two, we still receive funding based upon actual employees participating in insurance, but this is allocated at our actual cost, capped at the employer amount from the state health plan. Cash reserves, we do have cash reserves, and we're going to look at those here in the next slide. We aren't really impacted by this, but cash reserves will stay at 30% through FY28. Ours is at about 14%. Pre-97 had been exempt from the cash reserve calculation. We have $775,000 in pre-97. Those now will become part of the calculation.
Can you go back up to the insurance piece just on a question?
Mhm.
What was the amount in comparison if those rules were not changed? How much less are we receiving then in this funding than we would have received going into this year had the recalibration not taken place and removed the insurance?
The insurance reduction,
Sorry to put you on. If you don't know that,
I had that as we went through,
that's okay.
but I don't have it today. I'm
That's okay.
sorry.
No, you're fine. I should have told you ahead of time after reading it, so it's my fault. I believe it's just over $1 million, I believe, is what we will be reduced
I
by.
guess it's pretty close to that.
I apologize. I shouldn't have put you on the spot.
Is that a number we could have for tomorrow?
Of
For-
course.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
And Marcy, I'm a little confused. So for Year 2, district will receive funding based on actual employees participating, allocated at the district's actual cost and capped at the employer amount. So what does that mean?
Okay.
I want to explain what I think it means, but it'd be easier for you just to explain it.
Okay, let's say that the state plan was contributing $1,500 for single, hypothetically, and the district was paying $2,000. We would only receive $1,500. If the district were paying $1,750 and the state plan was paying $2,000, we would still only get the $1,750. So we will never receive, based upon this, we won't receive more than what the state health plan employer contribution is. We've had a lot of conversation about health insurance. Health insurance is huge right now, and I spent some time this morning with Mr. Kramer and Miss Laura. What we're seeing with the state health plan is that there is a retirement subsidy. However, we had a very large rate increase to stay with WEPT. And I'll talk through that with options, but health insurance is a hot topic.
And yes, before we received increases, you would have been spot on. But the insurance industry right now is a little bit, well, not a little bit, it's completely out of whack.
We also touched on interest earnings with our legislative forum that past evening. This isn't a huge number, but it is a reduction. The state is basically pulling back 50% of a district's interest earnings. That's a reduction of $175,000 to a district, and it's taking away local control in that districts are able to manage their money and place them to best earn dollars, but we're only going to get 50% of that.
So Marcy, I see that was its money is earned on the general fund deposit account. What were those monies? Were they also used for general fund expenses?
Yeah.
Okay, so 50% cut, but we're still expected then to
Maintain.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Or find a money tree. Okay.
Yep. Another very large topic, and you can see kind of one of the topics of recalibration was districts losing some of that local control, and with that having the instructional silo where particular dollar amounts had to be used for particular classes of employees. They, through the legislation, also mandated the pay that were districts to pay to their teachers. And this is teachers both inside and outside of the silo based upon average salary. The legislation mandates that teachers be paid the model average teacher salary. The model has an average salary in there, or up to 110% of the average teacher salary paid by the district. So our average teacher salary is $71,750. The model average teacher salary is projected at $74,422. This is one of those where there's lots of questions being asked, and this probably is subject to change. The staff included in the average teacher calculation are teachers, facilitators, tutors, counselors, librarians, and nurses, excluding federally funded positions and special ed funded positions. So it doesn't matter if it's instructional silo or not. With taking those employees, figuring the average, we are projected to need to increase 5.5% to the certified base salary schedule in order to meet that mandate.
Have you calculated how much that is?
It's taking our base from 66,865 to $60,000.
So I mean, across the board, like what's it
What's
going
the
to,
dollar amount?
yeah, what's it going to cost us to bump everybody to where they're supposed to be? And this
Yep.
is just certified staff.
This is
right?
teachers.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. I'll share that number with you.
Okay. Sorry, didn't mean to
Nope,
get ahead of you.
Nope, you're good.
Just waiting for the,
You're looking for the grand
the
finale.
punchline. Yes.
So cash reserves, that's always important.
Before we get to that portion though, Marcy, this is one that really I struggle with because we talked all through the legislative session about the average teacher salary. And then we get to last week and then we defined what the average teacher salary was.
Without an AG's opinion.
That seems like one of the really pinnacle things that we probably should have figured out before we were talking about average salary. Okay, just making sure I understood
And
exactly how that all worked.
we have people listed here that aren't in an instructional capacity. Counselors, librarians, and nurses, putting them in that average teacher calculation. Had I not heard that last week, they would not have been part of my calculation.
Just want to clarify that. So they don't fall into the instructional silo. So we can't pay them out of the instructional silo, but in figuring the average that we have to go to, we included them in the average. Or excuse me, let me rephrase that. We didn't include them. They were included in the average. Okay.
Mhm.
And so you're waiting for an opinion from the AG's office? Like, have they been asked?
What was told to districts last week by Department of Education was that there were multiple requests made of the AG, and that our request was one of many, but that we didn't know when requests were going to be fulfilled.
Okay. So can I ask another stupid question? So like, for example, we're looking at the instructional silo. Librarians are not listed, correct?
Correct.
So, but librarians were included to have this average, whatever that may be. And so I'm assuming that's an increase, right? So
Uh-huh.
where did those monies come from if we're not being given money to do that?
That comes from that remaining what we would think of as the block grant, which was essentially cut in half.
Okay, and so that's counselors, librarians, nurses. And that's it, right? That we've got to increase the average salary, whatever that means, that are not in the instructional silo. Okay. And you've run the numbers, how much that's going to cost?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
That's part of the
okay.
culmination.
Sorry, I'm just trying to like understand. This is the
Yep.
first time I've seen this list. I'm sure it's the first time the rest of the board has seen the list too, right? As to who's supposed to have the average salary and then who's like included in the instructional silo. Okay. Okay.
Well, and if you notice, it's the mandate is for all teachers. It's not just teachers in the instructional silo. So special ed teachers are in there, counselors, librarians, nurses, as well as federally funded teachers.
Okay.
Marcy, you might not have the answer to this, but when they're talking about the average teacher salary across the state, how did they weigh the difference between Teton County, where teachers make $117,000 versus the cost of living in Goshen County. I mean, it just seems like we're comparing apples to oranges when you talk about the entire state, right? So do you know how they managed to weigh that?
This is all part of the rebased RCA or regional cost adjustment. And that's where Teton saw like a 35% increase. That was one piece in the legislature and the recalibration model that was targeted to one district. So cash reserves. FY26, based upon the next page that I'm going to show you in our projections, we look to have cash reserves ending this year at just shy of $4.2 million. That's 14.7%. We've talked about wanting to be above 10, liking to be under 15. You know, I quote Mr. Kramer quite often to the fact that we're not a bank and the money's been provided to take care of our staff, and we need money. We need a cash reserve because we have things like special ed and transportation expenditures that we don't receive until the following year, but we don't need 30% either.
And one thing to clarify, just we are a unique district where we're not having to send funds. And so there are districts out there that need to have a significantly higher carryover percentage. So you might see some districts, you know, where 25% is needed because they have to send the state, because they're a recapture, am I using that word correctly? Recapture district. And then that requires them to have that carryover to write that check. We're in a unique situation where we don't have that situation to where we can kind of get a better handle on our carryover. We're not writing out a check. My perfect number is sitting at 12%. It leaves us in a comfortable position, but it's also, when you're dealing with a large number of 28 million, you know, getting to that percentage perfectly is very difficult. And then if we're in plus or minus 2 or 3%, I'm perfectly comfortable with where we're at. And in some cases too, that number can be deceiving, because as we would have preferred to actually been a little bit lower, but because of unfilled positions, we didn't have expenditures to the level that we budgeted for last year. It's not because of other things that were surprises, and would have actually preferred to have another math teacher at Torrington High School and fill that position, and that would have changed that number also.
So does the pre-97 money just roll into the cash reserves this year?
Yes.
Official inflation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Something that we did not budget for and or expect to have an additional 775,000. Exactly. So it's deceiving on that too. Yeah. Yep.
So if you look here, this is where I project us to finish the current year. Our revenues very, very close to what was budgeted, $200,000 additional in the block grant for current year. When you get down into the expenditures, we did have one area in particular that we very much overspent, and that was out of district placement. We budgeted $715,000, and right now it looks as if we're going to spend $1.1 million. That is a rarity in the out of district placement. We receive in the form of a reimbursement right now. That's special ed. Next year, we're going to see quarterly receipts for that. If you kind of start at the top, base salaries, that's certified and classified. We did have a number of positions that we anticipated filling, and or we thought they would be general fund, and we were able to keep them in, for instance, Title I. So that's the outlier there. Going down the list, the only other one that, actually two are transfers. Food service, it looks as if we're going to need to transfer another $100,000 over what was budgeted to cover CEP. And BOCES is the dual and concurrent enrollment. And our cost for that, we hoped 100,000 would be enough, and it's going to be 260,000. So an additional 160,000 being needed there.
Marcy, is that decrease in the BOCES funding a cause from the property taxes? Is that why we're receiving less for BOCES?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Good question. Technology is costing more than what was budgeted. We will need to increase that budget for next year. And then we've talked repeatedly our insurance situation. We ended up spending more, 1.2 million over what we had budgeted. We're in the middle of another insurance claim right now based upon the windstorm and the roof on this building. So, you know, that just kind of cycles.
Marcy, just a second. So you said for insurance, property insurance, we paid 1.2, correct? Not 1.2 more than we budgeted.
No.
Okay.
Two,
Those were the words you
200,000.
used, but
I'm
just for
sorry.
anybody listening, I want
Yeah.
to make sure that that didn't come off wrong.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
Marcy,
And insurance is something that is not specifically provided in the model. It is something we have to find the funds for.
question, unemployment projected 24, what, is that just a typo? Or is
Nope.
that real?
That's real. That's
Really?
real. Our unemployment is based upon actual, and we only had one claim. Yep. Yeah. Any other questions on where we look to finish the year? So if we look at our revenue, we need to compare where we are projected for FY26 versus what we anticipate seeing for next year. You're going to see, I felt like the easiest way to differentiate the instructional silo was in bold and in a larger font. So the fact that we have the instructional silo, you can see we didn't have that last year. Our special education reimbursement is up based upon the out-of-district placement that I alluded to. And then I have budgeted 1.1 million for next year for out-of-district placement expenditures. We would receive that quarterly, making it somewhat of a wash. Non-local resources are reduced by the 175,000 that we lose in interest earnings. Retirement reimbursement is increased. That's going from 2.5% to the 15.191%. And health insurance was included as part of the block grant before, and that now is, as I shared, based upon actual participation in the district plan, and whether it be year one or year two, if it be the employer contribution from the state health plan or the district actual contribution. And then I just shared our insurance claim. I'm hoping after deductible, we see $75,000. And that's probably low. That's a function based upon the taxes that we receive and what was levied. So we did have a tax shortfall last year. I'm projecting that we will receive all of our taxes and wouldn't have a shortfall. So if we look at the revenues I shared earlier, but if you look at your expenses, which are down a little bit lower, and it is hard to see up there, I apologize. There's a lot of numbers on this slide. I do have the instructional silo and the non-silo broken out. And these expenditures are before any salary and benefit adjustments that could occur tomorrow. So this is before insurance increases, all of that kind of stuff. The increase that I alluded to needing to happen with the average teacher salary, that is all before this. The 260,000 transfer that you see for BOCES, that gets moved up into the instructional silo. So that's up top under contract tuition. Everyone in the state saw a 50% reduction in workers' comp. That's the reasoning for that reduction. Looking through here, I have our food service transfer being equivalent. Utilities, our utilities were very low this year based upon our weather pattern. Propane was very low. We appreciated not having the cold temperatures, and I'm sure all of you saw that personally as well. So that's static. Out of district placement, I have that budgeted the same. The technology I mentioned, we have increased that. 425,000. I did skip transportation. We're hoping to put new radios on, or not radios, new cameras on all of the buses. That would be about 475,000. That's the reason for that increase. And then,
Marcy,
yeah.
sorry, real quick. So since transportation is reimbursable, is work done on the buses reimbursable?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Correct. Mhm. So this in total puts us at 2,095,000 positive before any salary and benefit adjustments. The $1 million question is here in potential costs. Of that $2 million, 1,243,000 is part of the silo. 851,806 is outside of the silo. We typically honor steps and lanes. Those are our costs of 156,000 to the silo for steps, 221,746 for those employees outside of the silo. That's all classified employees, administrative employees, coaches, special ed, transportation, they're all outside of the silo. Cost of lanes is based upon education. And when you look at that, the instructional silo is 3 times greater than the non-silo based upon certified staff. That's where the lane movement comes into play. The 5.5% that's needed to reach that mandated average teacher salary, for those in the silo, it's $426,000. For the certified administrators and extra duty, that's $286,000. And a 5.5% increase to base for classified, that's roughly $1 an hour, is $203,000. Those items up above are pretty clear and easy to quantify. The next one is health insurance, and that's the one that's rather difficult right now. And Lena, you alluded to the retiree subsidy associated with the state health plan. That appears to be, and we continue to be seeking information, that appears to be at the cost of $1.1 million for both instructional silo employees and all other employees. You can see with the state health plan in that retiree subsidy, we expend the instructional silo out 100%. On the left-hand column, there's no money remaining in the silo. We've been told we need to do a 5.5% increase. That money's spent. On the non-silo, if we go with the state health plan and we pay the retiree subsidy, we're at a negative $525,000. The thing to remember with that is that there's the $475,000 that hadn't been expended in the past for new cameras and transportation. So $475,000 would be received a year later, and we're roughly $50,000 into carryover. But please remember, there's still questions to be answered. If we stay with WEPT and we do an 88-12 split, our increase was 16%. And that's at a cost of $833,000. Some of the conversation had in the insurance committee focused on the fact that our baseline deductible is $3,500. So what we're providing for employees is catastrophic insurance. Whereas with the state health plan, we have the option for some more reasonable, lesser dollar deductibles, and also have the option, should we see this out, to where there could be an insurance option for retirees. With that, I'm gonna open it for questions.
You probably aren't going to have an answer to this one, but you said there are a lot of outstanding questions. So what happens at the end of June when we have our finalized budget? Or do you think we'll have answers to those questions before we get to that point?
I hope we have the answers we need. I can't answer that right now.
And I guess on the flip side of that, when we have our finalized budget come June and the questions and answers have changed, what are the repercussions for our budget work and what our budget looks like going forth next fiscal year?
We have carryover. I'm not advocating for expending that carryover down, but that is somewhat of our security blanket, if you will.
For this year, to just get through this year,
Exactly,
because it's not sustainable moving forward.
exactly.
Okay. So at least, like, if the staff are listening to tonight, this is not all doom and gloom. The world's not crashing down yet. And with that reserve, those reserve monies, we'll at least be able to get through this year and then figure out all these questions, right, moving forward.
You know, Mr. Kramer's been very, very vocal that the only reductions have been through attrition.
Mhm.
And that's very much been the goal and the desire, but sustainability is the unknown right now.
But that's because the district has done such a good job with their reserves, right? And preserving those reserves. Am I off base on that?
No, I would agree. The other piece that's going to be kind of deceiving in a lot of this is you're going to see some really, really big numbers coming out of other districts across the state in regards to salary increases because of where they appear to the average. If you're significantly lower than the average and you have to give an increase of 25% to just get to the average, that was probably meaning there was something askew in the years previous. we have been able to, because of the board's work throughout the years and Marcy's work, provide realistic salary increases on a yearly basis and been very conscious of that. And so because of that, we positioned ourselves to be rather close to what that average is. And so you're not going to see a astronomical number coming from Goshen County in regards to something in for salary relation increase or base salary increases. That, for those that are understanding and have seen the history, very easy to understand. For those looking for headlines across the state and seeing 25%, 20%, why aren't we getting that? Well, it's because over time period, in the past since 2017, we've increased the base salary of certified staff 26% in that time, which means we didn't have to take this large drastic increase on 1 year. And so I think that's important to understand because in my mind, and especially as the superintendent, slow and steady gets us in the right position at the right time, as opposed to drastic increases and drastic cuts. And then that's again also why we try to hold on to that carryover. So if there is something that comes back and says, no, this is something that shouldn't be in the instructional silo, or yes, it should be, and it's a larger number because that group wasn't included, we have some of that carryover ability to take and utilize that to maintain our budget in a healthy manner.
Any more questions for Marcy? It's a lot to digest. Okay, board, so with that, I will entertain a motion to enter executive session pursuant to Wyoming State Statute 16.4.405. And the purpose of that is to discuss wages, salaries, benefits, and terms of employment during all negotiations to further this conversation. Is anyone willing to make a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of entering executive session for that purpose, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will enter executive session. All right, it looks like we've got everybody back. And so we are back in the work session at 7:35. Next on the agenda is to enter, I'm sorry to the public, but enter another executive session pursuant to Wyoming Statute 164405-2. This time is pursuant to our board governance 1.7 in its subsection 2, which is discussion and executive session between board member and the full board regarding policy issues involved or board member violations of those policies. And the statute, as I referenced, discusses hearing a complaint in executive session that has been brought against an officer, which would be a board member. So with that, I would ask for a motion to entertain or to enter executive session.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor of entering executive session for the purposes presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We will enter executive session for that purpose. Does the board wish to proceed with any board topics for discussion tonight? Having received no response, the meeting is adjourned.